Hi, welcome. Part 3 of Words of Rhythm of War. Not going to talk too long because I really want to get back to reading. Alright, stick around for my thoughts. Okay, I just finished chapter 49. I don't have a ton of thoughts yet, but I don't want to get too far and end up with too many thoughts. Plus I'm like 50 pages in. So let's start with Esh and I. I should have somehow, looked at the, perspectives for this part and realized Esh and I was going to be our flashback because she's dead. But that just did not process to me. It's definitely interesting getting this because we got this from Dalinar's perspective, right? Their first meeting. But I don't really remember it. That said, it's definitely interesting to get it from Esh and I's perspective. And also, like, Venli and Esh and I have such a fascinating dynamic. The one note I did make in here is how interesting it is that the listener dynamic is not dissimilar from what the Alethi are doing, where it's a lot of petty border disputes within the kingdom, nation, whatever, and not really worrying about becoming better. So I'm wondering if that's intentional, because I think that came from like Odium and the his Unmade. So I'm thinking that's something kind of intentional happening there. So that's really my only thoughts on Esh and I. I think it's kind of funny. Not funny, haha, just funny, like, weird. That the way things get, like, messed up, lost in translation, and how they came to think that, like, chasm fiends are they're gods. Wild. Dalinar, though, so Dalinar is in this fight. We know Taravangian, like, kind of sent the order for them to betray the Alethi, betray the coalition, and they're dealing with that. I don't know if this was intentionally timed to the attack on Irithiru. If it wasn't, it's a weird coincidence that it happened, so I have to kind of assume that was intentionally timed that way. Wait till the bondsmith's out of the tower to attack, find a way to keep him occupied, and, the invasion of the tower is obviously the priority over this skirmish in, Aesir, he had that thing with the guy, Justice, Nen, whatever, and he touches him, and he sees, like, his past, and it just brought to mind, Vin and the Lord Ruler with, whatever the, alloy of gold is. And I don't know if there's anything there. It just came to mind. Finally, Navani and Kaladin. I think it's interesting that Kaladin is so bent on fighting back alone. Like, he's not looking for allies. He is very much planning a one-man army thing, and that's not gonna work. The sibling, though, I love the sibling. I love that they have no desire to conform to human comfort. Like, they're not going to make themselves something other than they are just to make humans more comfortable. I think they bring up some really interesting points about how humans treat Spren, and I'm fascinated by them, and I'm equally fascinated by their reluctant partnership with Navani. I'm really excited to see where that goes. But I will come back to you with more thoughts soon. Okay, I have finished chapter 57, which is a lot of chapters, but feels like I didn't cover that much ground. But let's talk about it. Let's start with Renarin. Finally got a Renarin point of view. I think we got one in one of the earlier books, but it doesn't matter. I get excited every time. His relationship with Dalinar is so different from that of Adolin's, and I think a lot of it has to do with Dalinar doesn't have expectations of Renarin, and it's the difference between having expectations you can't live up to versus not living up to I don't know. It's weird. So Renarin in some ways feels freer, like he has more freedom, but also he clearly still feels very beholden to Alethi expectations. Even while he tried, or not that he feels beholden to them, he's aware of the consequences to not living up to those expectations, even while he doesn't really personally care to, you know, whereas Yasna like broke those expectations and chooses to live outside of them, and damn the consequences, you know. I think it's a very interesting dynamic. Anyway, he has hinted at wanting to bring in more of Janat's corrupted spren, and he said he had somebody in mind. My mind immediately went to Relaine, just because I really want him to have a spren. But Relaine wants to be a windrunner, and I just don't foresee Honor Spren accepting Janat's corruption. So if that's who he's thinking of, maybe he doesn't become a windrunner. The other possibility would be he's thinking Adolin, but I still really don't want Adolin to bond as friends. I don't know. I love a good non-superpowered person in a superpowered world. You know, I don't know. And I feel like Adolin's doing so much work to accept that and to find ways to help the world without magic that I don't know. I just don't see any way of him getting bonded to his friend other than like Maya somehow. That wouldn't feel cheap. We've had some more Venli, Eshonai flashbacks. Honestly, they don't excite me overly much, but she's ace. I'm doing it. I'm saying it. I made a joking note about it when she was like, I will never take mate form. But then the way her mom responds to that, like the comments she mentions about her mom making about like, oh, it'll happen one day, you never expect it, but it'll happen, feels very much the ace vibe of like, people never actually believe you're ace. And then the last thing, I had like one other note, not really important. And Yasna and Wit, Yasna weaponizing Wit. At first I was like, this is cool. I love what she's doing, like intentionally angering somebody so that she has an excuse to retaliate is brilliant, but also like, oof, it was a lot. It was a lot. That harsher, no Wit, harsher was a lot. All right, I'm gonna read more. All right, I just finished chapter 66. And to be honest, part 3, I just don't have a lot of thoughts on. I keep like thinking of things in the moment, but like nothing profound or particularly interesting. I think Navani's exploration of light is really fun, and I kind of like, I really enjoy the way that like Sanderson is able to incorporate real world physics into his magic. It makes things more interesting, more fun. So her whole exploration of light is really interesting. Kaladin. Anything about Kaladin? I did take a couple notes. I'll come back to that one in just a second. Kaladin, also very interesting. I do think Sanderson does a remarkable job of avoiding power creep in his magic. Or not really. I mean, like, power creep is clearly happening here. Like, the Radiants get more powerful, and then we have the Fuse get more powerful, and then the Radiants get more powerful, and now the Singers have something even more powerful, and it goes back and forth. But he also does a really good job of getting rid of their power or bringing their power back down. So having the whole Irithiru, the tower, be having something block their powers and bringing Kaladin back to a point where he kind of has to start over and figure out new ways of doing everything is really, really remarkable. And I really enjoy that because it creates stakes again. What I've been feeling in the last like book and a half is that there weren't really stakes. You could just, nobody can die, nobody can really get hurt because they'll just heal again. And so having something where that's not happening. Kaladin's healing, but it's much more slow. Things like that I think really, really help bring those stakes back to where they are. Venli, I gotta be honest, the flashback's still not doing much for me. But Venli, interesting that she almost said her next vow, next oath. And I think the interesting thing about that is that whatever her order is, whatever Timber's spren is, it makes sense that they wouldn't bond with humans if one of the oaths is to free those that are imprisoned, which clearly, if the spren are viewing the spren used in like fabrials and stuff as imprisoned, they can't do anything about that because they wouldn't be able to take that oath. So I think that's really interesting. Dalinar, Taravangian, wham, boo-hoo. I'm kind of coming back around to liking Taravangian, and I don't like that I like Taravangian, but there's just something very tragic about him as a character. Somebody so convinced they are doing the right thing, and knowing they are making sacrifices for what they think is right, it's just heartbreaking, and I'm really, really kind of enjoying that. Talking and vacuuming. Alright, that's as quiet as that vacuum's gonna be for a while. Last one. Oh, briefly talking about the epigraphs. There are two things. L, I don't know who L is, but also whoever is writing these undertext also doesn't know who L is. My first thought when I was listening to the audiobook was the letter L, so I was like, light song? But then it's EL, which may be Ellen, but that doesn't make sense either, so I don't know who L is. I'm like legitimately racking my brain for somebody this could be, and I have no idea. So I don't know who L is. Also, they mentioned sand a lot, which I assume is a reference to the White Sands world, which I know is part of Cosmere. I read the first graphic novel. I don't really remember it. I'd like to reread them, but my biggest memory of the graphic novel was that it falls into that pet peeve of mine of this should have been a book. You didn't need the pictures. And then Yazda, my love, my darling, I adore you, but why are you going into battle? And like everything in the book tries to justify this. Like Yasna's like, I need to know what my soldiers feel. Wit is like, it's important for you to experience this. Dalinar agrees with it. Even the Scope. What is this man? The Herdazian guy is like, yep, it's important for you not to know, just, know the cost to those who die, but also the cost to those who live. But, like, I'm sorry. If she dies. But also I like Wit being like, girl, you don't need to fight fair. Why do you think you need to fight fair? What is wrong with you? But speaking of Wit, what are what was the word? Sleepless. Have we heard of those before? I swear I've never heard of those. We know they're somehow connected to the Ghost Bloods. I don't know. Also, I miss Shallan and Adolin. I want to get back to their story. Like, all of this is fine. But, like, I want to get back to Shallan and Adolin. Are they even in this part? I didn't even, check. I should have checked. Where's the startup part? They're not even in this. I gotta get through this part before I get back to the honor spread. Come on. Why does he do this to me? Anyway, I'll get back to you with my thoughts probably last time for the part 3. I'm really just trying to get through it. How much? Yeah, probably the next time I update you will be the end of part 3. I finished part 3. I finished all of the chapters and the interludes. I don't have a lot of thoughts. So let's talk Seth and Dalinar. Then we'll talk R'lain, my boy R'lain. And then we'll talk interludes. Perfect. So Seth and Dalinar. Seth is really putting all of his eggs in this basket. I guess this is coming from the interludes a little bit too. Whatever. He really is committed to Dalinar. And on one hand, I think this is ultimately good for him. And on the other hand, I think this is really concerning. Because he's expecting Dalinar to be perfect, and Dalinar isn't. And so he just trusts Dalinar's judgment in everything. And I think that's ultimately bad. But also I think it's good for him to be partnered with somebody that admits to his fallibility. For all of the things I don't like about Dalinar, at least he admits when he's wrong. So, I mean, at least in that sense, I think he'll probably be good for Seth in the long run, but right now it's kind of a little bit worrisome. But honestly, Seth's entire order gives me the squick. They're very lawful good, no black and white, everything black and white, no room for interpretation, and I don't love it. Although I kind of agree with his little spren fellow that, like, he's going to have to figure out right and wrong for himself. He can't just be like, Dalinar, tell me what's right. Dalinar, tell me what's wrong. But let me tell you, Dalinar, more than happy to do that. he's literally telling the Stormfather what's right and wrong, as if this isn't an immortal force of nature. Like, I'm not saying you can't try to make him better, but, like, you can't force him to be better. And I really do have issues with the way Dalinar pushes him around and doesn't listen. Because, like, the whole thing with all of these bonds with people and Sprens, the Radiants and the Sprens, is that it's a partnership. And Dalinar is really treating it one way. That, like, the Stormfather is a tool for him to use. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Meanwhile, back at the tower, cool things happening. Navani's got a lot of guilt over messing this up, which is, like, fair, but also, like, girl, you're just doing your best. Kaladin, I mean, I don't think he's dead. He's obviously not dead, but, like, I wonder what happened because of Dalinar and the storm. I mean, I'm guessing my guess would be that his spheres got reinfused and that he could use that to help himself a little. Now, let's talk R'lain, and let's talk getting this boy a Spren, because this book is teasing me. So it starts out with, like, the possibility that an honor Spren might find him worthy, and I think it's unlikely, given everything, but who knows, maybe if Adolin comes through, maybe, but Adolin's also, you know, petitioning on behalf of humans, so I don't know on that one. All right, Sha-Anat's corrupted Spren, maybe one of them could choose. Renarin certainly has somebody in mind, and I mean, they're already corrupted, so it makes sense that a corrupted Spren would be more likely to choose a listener, maybe. Then we have more of the ones, whatever, the Venli's Spren is Timber, you know, more of them are showing up, and they exclusively bond listeners, so maybe them. And then Navani's out here coming up with the, well, what about the sibling? Is R'lain gonna be another bondsmith? I don't know how I feel about that. I think, honestly, I was still kind of a big fan of the idea of the sibling bonding, Dabid. But, like, also I'd be down for the sibling bonding R'lain. Either way sounds good to me. Okay. Then the rest of the interludes. We have, I'm serious. Seriously, though. Seriously. Sanderson, talking directly to you. If R'lain is not bonded as Spren by the end of this, I'm throwing hands. It's on sight. Get my boy a Spren. Okay, interludes. We talked about Seth already. Cheery. All I got out of that is I really need to read Dawn Shard, because clearly it's actually relevant. Because that's apparently where this, what are they called? The soulless, listen to somethingless. The, sleepless. That's clearly where we learn about them. And then Taravangian. Anything new? No, I like that he used the O-Stone to, like, lure Seth in. Again, it's kind of sad. He has driven everybody away from him, and now he's trying to do the right thing, but obviously nobody trusts him, because why would they? And that's really it. I got way too excited about the idea of Renarin coming to talk to him. Like, as soon as it was like, and then Renarin walked in, I was like, oh! I think I'm just obsessed with Renarin. But also, like, here was your chance. Here was somebody reaching out to you to say, if you would like to be good, here is a way to do it, and you shot him down. So then, like, and I know he's quote-unquote dumb Taravangian right now, but, like, how do you... Here was your chance and you turned it down, and then the next second you're trying, you know, like, you can't have it both ways. Anyway, that was my thoughts on part 3 of the Stormlight Archive. And you know what? I never part 3 over them before. I just remembered that these guys, the parts have titles. Part 3, Songs of Home. Subscribe if you have not already, so you can see when I put the next one out. Should be in 2 weeks. Might be something in between. Maybe not. And I love y'all.